In the first phase of elections across the country, all eyes will be on Manipur, because both the constituencies in Manipur, the inner Manipur as well as outer Manipur, goes for polls on the first phase, and this after last year's ethnic violence in the state, which took more than 200 lives, over 50,000 people were displaced. In fact, for the elections in Manipur, Election Commission have taken some special measures, like for instance the inner Manipur seat, which is largely the valley region and parts of the hills, will go for polls on the first phase, but the outer Manipur seat is going to go to polls in two separate dates, both on phase 1 and phase 2. A part of it will go to polls in phase 1, another part will go to poll in phase 2. This is done so as to ensure the movement of security forces. In fact, some more measures have been taken. In fact, this time Manipur saw a very low key campaigning. Hardly there was any campaigning, because there are people who are still in the relief camps, and the focus of the political parties have been to woo the voters on the issue of the violence and what has happened in the state. Particularly the Congress made it a major poll plank along with its allies of the India bloc. The BJP tried to counter this by saying that Manipur would not be divided. This was said by none other than Union Home Minister Rajnath Singh, who campaigned in the state. Remember, the Kuki-Zo community has been asking for a separate administration in Manipur. So therefore, the Lok Sabha elections have lot of politicking involved in Manipur, although there was no big time campaign in the state. Now, Election Commission has taken special measures for people who are in the relief camp to cast their votes. There will be over 160 companies of central forces who will be only manning the polling booths, apart from the forces who are present in the state to maintain law and order. The border security force, the CRPF, is already there. The Assam Rifles will be guarding the border with Myanmar. Also, there are special polling booths made for the internally displaced people, and there are also some very important measures which have been taken by the Election Commission. NDTV spoke exclusively to the Chief Electoral Officer of Manipur, PK Jha, and this is what he had to say.
All arrangements are in place. We are going to polls tomorrow on the 19th of April. The entire Manipur parliamentary constituency and the 15 assembly segments of Outer Manipur parliamentary constituency are going for polls tomorrow. So the security arrangements, the deployment of central paramilitary forces, the sector officers, police sector officers, everything has been done. We also have identified micro observers to be deputed at critical and vulnerable polling stations. We are also going to have webcasting and videography at the polling stations which have been identified as sensitive or critical. In addition to that, I am very happy to inform that in the entire state, 815 polling stations have been identified as those which will be managed exclusively by women polling staff. In addition to that, we are also going to have 114 model polling stations, and in the first phase there are 16 special polling stations where the internally displaced voters will be casting their vote.
And sir, can you explain a bit how this internally displaced person will be voting in this special polling station set up for them?
So I'll give you a complete picture of the entire state in that case. So you are aware that there are 10 districts where relief camps are located, where people who were displaced during the conflict are staying along with their families. So we had identified the voters among the displaced population, and accordingly the ID forms were distributed. Election Commission of India had devised a scheme, and it was approved by the ECI, which facilitated the voting of the internally displaced voters, and they would be voting for the places where they are originally enrolled. So special polling stations have been created at a cluster level. So let's say there is a group of relief camps for them. For the voters they are staying in those relief camps, we have notified special polling stations, considering the convenience of the voters so that they do not have to travel a long distance. We also have made arrangement for those people who are internally displaced and not staying in the relief camps. They are staying with their friends, families, or they have made their own arrangements. So, voting facility at the special polling station has been made available for them as well. So, in the entire state, 94 special polling stations have been notified, out of which in the 7 districts which are going for poll in the first phase, 65 special polling stations are there. And they are in respect of both inner as well as outer Manipur parliamentary constituency. Some of the districts have already completed and reported the 100% dispersal of polling parties. In some of the districts like Churachandpur, Kangpokpi and Chandel, we had dispersal on P-3 and P-2 days. In Churachandpur district, we also had the movement of polling personnel and security personnel through Indian Air Force deployed choppers. In the areas where the terrain is difficult to reach, all the arrangements are in place, and all the districts that are going for polls have done all arrangements as per the guidelines and instructions of the Election Commission of India. My appeal to the voters would be to come out and vote. Manipur state has been traditionally voting in large numbers. Our people have always been very enthused about coming out and being part of the democratic process. So I would again like to request the voters of the state, all the people who are enrolled as voters, to come out and vote without any fear, without any concern, and without getting influenced by any kind of illegal inducement.
Special security arrangement. Can you give us some details? How many companies of paramilitary force, central forces, and what are the measures where you're taken up in those sensitive areas?
See, we want to send out a message to all the voters of the state that they should come out and vote without any fear of any kind of security concerns, and also to come out and vote without being influenced by any kind of inducement. At the same time, looking at the security concerns in the state, more than 160 companies of central paramilitary forces have been deployed exclusively for election related security. In addition to that, the state police forces, the armed constabulary of the state, they all have been deployed. We have deployed the sector officers, and also for various sectors, the police officers also have been given specific responsibilities. We will also be watching the vulnerable and critical polling stations. So through webcasting, through videography, and also, as I said earlier, deployment of micro observers, we'll be looking at the polling process, and we'll see to it that no untoward incident happens on the day of poll.